Welcome to iPen Visions Podcast, interviews and conversations, where we bring authors, speakers, entrepreneurs, and those with a vision to our networking community and platform. Be our guest. Include your article, your ad, your promotions, and upcoming events in our quarterly magazine. We are proud to be a part of the Collective for podcast, a virtual tour showcasing you and your business. Our podcast, the magazine, a virtual tour, all on one platform where networking, creativity, and visions meet. All you have to do is contact us at ipendesign@gmail.com. And tonight, welcome to the show. Good evening, good evening, good evening. My name is Nanette Buchanan, and this is iPen Visions, interviews and conversations, where we try to make a networking community and bring you information to help build your business. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're just someone that wants to get more knowledge about things that are going on, we have authors and business people and community people and you name it, we try to make the connections. So tonight, we have the business side of everything. This man is a wealth of knowledge, and we want to bring him on to give us a wealth of knowledge. I mean, why not all of us be wealthy at the same time? That's a beautiful thing to think about. So before he comes on, of course, I want to introduce my partner in crime, and she's one of those kind of just goes and moves to another country or another state in the country. I'm like the president. You far away. Anytime you move all the way to Puerto Rico. But the thing about it is that's what we're going to talk about today, about building your business and credibility and being an expansion of who you are. And when you're an expansion of who you are, like my partner is, like we try to be here at iPen Visions, we want to be an audience with our guests tonight. So, hey, Felice.
Hello.
How are you?
Good evening. Good evening. I love that I'm an expansion. I love it. Love it.
Yeah. You got to be. Okay, favorite question. Where are you calling from?
Puerto Rico seems to be a distant dream.
It's a distant dream right now. Okay, so that means you're back in Dallas.
I'm still in Dallas. I have never
still
left.
in Dallas.
Yet.
You didn't leave yet. Okay.
So I have two more Mondays.
Two more Mondays?
Yes, and then I will be.
You're cheating. You're cheating.
Well,
You're supposed to say 2 weeks. That's 14 days. No, I got 2 more Mondays.
No,
you're cheating. You didn't count all the days in between.
On the second Monday from now, on the 23rd.
On the second Monday, you're still skipping the days in between. But that's a beautiful thing. And that's a great introduction to our guest tonight. Because the thing about it is most people dream. Mm-hmm. And when they have a dream and they have a vision and they get detoured or they get thrown off, they seem to forget all about the dream.
Yeah.
They forget about the vision. They forget about I was headed in this direction, but I got diverted. And they seem not to get on path. So I'm interested in talking to our guests in reference to those type things, because a lot of times we don't realize that the detour may be the better route. Or the detour may have the better information, or the people that we meet. I used to not throw away numbers at all. If you go somewhere and you pick up a number and you're like, well, I'm not into this. But then months later, maybe years later,
there you go.
Your detour has led you right to that same person. Yeah. And now you're scrambling for the names and the phone number and the connections. So I'm just interested in those detours and those, those divots that we take when we're on the road that we think is the successful path. Yeah. So I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. I'm super excited too because we have to fund our dream.
Yes.
If a detour or not, or specifically,
you gotta have. But wait, when we broke, how we get to know that? How we get to know that? you
Don't
know.
say that word. We're not broke.
And see, that's the whole thing. We
We
got to
might
get
be
our minds right
temporarily
first.
without funds to do something,
That's
but we're not
right.
broke.
That's right. So I'm gonna go in here and tell my husband he ain't broke. I'm gonna let
That's
him know.
right. That's right. And so
We
if he
ain't
ain't
broke.
broke, we ain't broke.
We ain't broke. We ain't broke. We ain't
I
broke. We gonna.
have a good friend that tells me all the time. She's like, the Bible says God paid for it all. So
Yeah, so we don't owe anything. Hey, I'm with that. I'm with that. But for our viewing audience and for our guests, we want to bring him on
yes,
and
please let's
see
do that.
just how brokenness can turn into fixing. You know,
Oh
we
yeah,
can we can get
absolutely.
fixed and repaired and
Yes.
prepared. That's what we
Yes.
want to do. So we want to bring him on. Our guest tonight is uh,
Mhm.
Phillip Woolfolk. And we like I said, you know, we've brought a lot of people on our platform. This
Yeah,
is
yes.
we're over our 200 show now. So I'm proud, you know, to say, hey,
Yeah.
we've had 200 guests. But in all
Mm-hmm.
the guests that we've had, I went through his bio today and I
Mm-hmm.
looked at it and I said, wow, we had a guest that did that.
Mm-hmm.
We had a guest that talked about that, and we had a guest that
Mm-hmm.
talked about that, but we never had someone that was full of the wealth.
Yeah.
They had to put the bits and pieces together, and it
Mm-hmm.
seems like he's got the bits and pieces. So
Yeah.
I'm going to take out my pad and my pen because I need
Uh-huh.
some bits and pieces for me. You know, I gotta get this, and I want to let everybody know, everybody that's listening, when you listen to this tape, take out your pad and your pen. Go back to the replay because he's hard to get in touch with. When you get
Oh.
in touch with him, he gets back to you. He does
Yeah.
answer. But you got to be like, did he answer today? Did he answer today? Did he answer today? And then when you see it, you go, oh, he answered, he answered, he answers. So he's a busy man. He's a busy man.
Mm.
We want to make sure to give him his props as far as he does get back to you. It's no
Mm-hmm.
problem. But the thing about it is be on top of your business and know what you want. So take
Yeah.
down the notes so that when you do talk to him, you can ask him directly for what you want. Make
Mm-hmm.
sure it's direct. He's a busy man. And without further ado, we're not going to hold him up because he is a busy man. I'm bringing to the stage Mr. Phillip Woolfolk. Good evening, sir. How are
Good
you?
evening. Thank you for having me. It's
Yay.
a pleasure, a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for such a lovely introduction. You know, while you were talking, it brought back a number of memories. And one of them was when I was in the early stages of my banking career. I remember having discussions at the water cooler with people who were always complaining, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they stopped complaining to me because my question was always, "What are you going to do about it?" Right?
Right. All
You
right.
Right,
know,
Right. I
right,
love that.
right.
you're not happy. You have this long laundry list of things you're
Yeah.
unhappy with.
Mm-hmm.
Are you just going to meet here at the water cooler every day and
And talk
commiserate,
about the
or
complaint. Right,
are you going to do something about it? You know,
Right.
right.
and when that particular bank got acquired by another bank, they
Mm-hmm.
decided to get rid of the commission structure, and I was one of the top salespeople. And
Mm.
so I asked at a dinner that they invited us all to, or luncheon, were they going to increase our base pay compensation to basically cover the fact that we lost this commission?
Sure.
Right.
And they told me they didn't know.
I
Oh,
know.
They weren't sure what they were
oh.
going to do with that. I
Mm.
decided, you know, growing up in the street, you kind of get a sense of whether or not people are giving you the truth or not. So I
Yeah.
decided this guy is lying, and
Yeah.
I gotta move on.
Right.
And so I updated my resume, and within 30 days. So I don't spend a lot of time complaining about stuff.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
is if
Yeah,
you
then you're one of
if,
my favorite people because
yeah,
again,
Yes.
you
I
Yes.
forget the plan or the situation is there, But
Right.
again, what are we going to do about it?
Well, not only
Oh,
that,
absolutely.
you're supposed to have more than one egg in your basket.
Right, right,
There's
right.
always supposed to be one more. But before we go on into detail with all of the marvelous things that you do as far as helping others with their business and what you've created for yourself in business, which is a platinum platform for people to just look at. If he did it, why not me? If he was able to maneuver and do these things, why not me? And if I can't do it, let me take a piece of it. Let me at least get an idea of what it is. So, like I said, get your pen and paper ready. Okay. But what we're going to ask you, our first question of difficulty for you, sir, because I'm quite sure all the rest will be our questions of difficulty. What we're going to ask you is tell us who you are. Who is Phillip Woolfolk?
Okay.
Why would we try to explain who you are when you can tell us better than we can? Who are you? And in telling us who you are, please, please, please do not forget how the journey.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'll give you a little bit of the background. I'll start with there. So I spent about 25 years in the banking industry, and kind of simultaneously during my journey as a banker, I also became a real estate investor. And so I've always had my own business. I tell people I started my banking career when I was about 9 years old. Believe it or not, I used to save my money, running errands, going to the store, cleaning up, and doing different things for neighbors. And I would save my money, and then I would lend money to my parents' friends in between paydays. So if I lent you $10, then on payday you had to pay me back 15. And I remember my father having a conversation with a neighbor, and the guy says to him, your son's interest rate is pretty high, right? I had no idea what interest rates were. All I knew is I lend you 10, you pay me back 15. So my dad says to him, well, he's the only one around here with any money, so you can either pay it or not.
Right.
I can't help you. Right.
You're the precursor to the predatory lenders.
Yeah. So I didn't know anything about predatory lending, but apparently I was a predatory lender long before I got older and became disgusted by that, but had already been doing it myself.
That's
so
awesome.
That's kind of how I started. I've been a entrepreneurial spirit person my entire life. So, shining shoes and lending money and delivering newspapers and running errands for neighbors and all that kind of stuff is how I hustled as a young boy growing up. I tell the story, actually talking to somebody recently, sharing that when it snowed, for me as a young boy, when it snowed, for me, that was like $100 day. And you look out the door now when it snows, you don't see anybody out there.
Nobody's
Not
there.
at all.
They're not trying to make any money on those snow days.
But
so that's kind of
mindset is everything, really.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
is everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's really kind of how I got started. Started buying single family properties when I was about 22 years old. Built a real estate portfolio that allowed me to be able to have some freedom. And I talk a lot to people about having alternative sources of income, additional streams of income, and not to be reliant 100% on their job. Sometimes you can have a good job, what we consider a good job, and I had one of those with stock options and bonuses and the whole 9 yards. But I always realized that was not my company, and I was not the captain of that ship.
Exactly.
And that could end at any moment. And whenever it ended, I wanted to be prepared to be able to take care of myself and my family. So fast forward to September 11th, 2001, I happened to be in Pentagon City at a fair lending conference. At the time, I was the vice president and fair lending manager responsible for fair lending compliance for their 7-state market area when the terrorists attacked the country. In that moment, I decided I wanted to spend more time at home with my wife and my 2 daughters. And it took me about a year to transition out of that job. And I was able to stay home for 5 years, golfing, camping, swimming, traveling, and just enjoying my family. And I was able to do that because I spent a significant amount of time, in addition to working my full-time job, growing a business that would be able to sustain us in the event I didn't have a job. And so that's been my method of operation for a long time. I tell people all the time, I don't care how much money you make. If it's not your business, not your company, you need to start something where you're
Mhm.
generating streams of income that are yours, that you can
Mhm.
control, and that you can grow and prosper from. So that's been, part of my journey from an entrepreneurial standpoint. Then over the past several years, I spent probably about 4 years as the board treasurer for the African American Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey. During the pandemic, I ended up leaving the board and becoming a staff member. Served about 3 years as the chief operations officer with the chamber. Did a lot of work around access to capital and really working with businesses to help them improve their sustainability and profitability. And that kind of mushroomed into, I left the chamber back in 2024. I started Phillip Speaks, which is my company that revolves around speaking and writing, coaching. Um, I right now am co-author of 4 anthologies. The Triumph in the Trenches, which I think you've met some of my co-authors
Mhm.
that have been on the show. Our our publisher, Ilona Washington, put that together. We did a trilogy, which consists of basically three volumes of Triumph in the Trenches, where we really talk about our lived experiences and how we navigated the world in corporate spaces and nonprofit spaces, wherever it is we happen to have worked. And then I had a speaking engagement last year and had an opportunity to speak at a Rebirth Summit where the topic was rebirth and transformation. And that led to an opportunity to co author another anthology around transformation. So I have those 4 anthologies under my belt, and I'm currently working on my solo book. In addition to that, I do some work as a coach and trainer, doing some work in Atlantic City with the Small Business Academy, where I do an access to capital presentation and work with small businesses and folks who are looking to get in business. And then I'm in the process of doing a training program for returning citizens in the prison system here in New Jersey that is basically working with folks to help them in areas of financial literacy and understanding how they can create their own environment by leveling the playing field and understanding how they can invest in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate, different things like that. So like you say, I am a little bit busy.
Yeah, yeah. I would say a little, just a little. I would say that. But
It's
you know what
good.
the
I
thing
think
about it is, and I say this in jest, but it's truth. Um, as a parent, we often try to do just what you did, encourage the children when they're smaller. You buy the little shops and tell them you're the restaurant owner, or
Oh
you
yeah.
give them a little bit of money and tell them, playing Monopoly, this is how you get your investment going and everything else. And it's funny that you bring up how your father had to explain to the neighbor, hey, look, you just have to pay him. This is what it is. I can remember riding in the car. I was a single mother at the time, and I was riding in the car with my son and my daughter, and we pulled into the gas station. And my son, from the time he was in kindergarten, said he didn't want to work for anyone. He,
Mhm.
he,
Yeah.
he had already decided. And I actually thought the reason was because you would be away from home. Because he
Hmm.
would always say, well, where are you going? And I said, I got to go to work. You
All
got to
right.
go to school.
yeah.
And he would be like, you don't have to go to work. And I was like, no, I have to go to work. So I automatically equated the fact that he didn't like the idea. And that's
Mhm.
why he made the statement that
Right.
he was not going to be working for someone. So
Mhm.
every morning, no matter where, if it was the bus driver, if it was anybody we saw on the street
Right.
as we were going to school, he would
Hmm.
say, see there, he's out here early in the morning. I'm not
Hmm.
going to work for anybody. I'm not. And all my heart was like fluttering, going, this man is never going to work. He's not going to work. How am I going to get him to understand he's got to go to work? We pulled into the
Right.
gas. We pulled into the gas station, and he says, "Ah, I know what job I can get." And we were like, "Well, what job?" And he said, "I could be the gas man."
Right.
So my daughter said to him, "He works for the gas people." He said, "No, the money is in his pocket."
Oh.
Because in New Jersey, I know that a lot of people, I'm now in North Carolina, but I was from New Jersey. And
Yeah.
a lot of people don't understand the gas attendant comes to you
Right.
and pumps your
Mm.
gas. So
Right.
he has the money, he has everything right there when you want change. He's got
Mhm.
a wad of money in his
Mm.
pocket. So my son assumed that this
Yeah,
was
yeah.
his money.
That was his business, and that
That
was
was
his
his
money.
that was
Mhm.
his business. Now
Mhm.
here's the end of that journey. My son is
Mhm.
now in his 40s, he's 44, 45,
Mhm.
and he does not work for anyone.
Yeah.
He works for
Yeah.
himself.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's
Very
been
good.
He
doing it now.
preordained it.
Yeah, he's been doing it now for over 12 years, maybe almost close
Yeah.
to 15 years. He
Great.
he he was adamant about,
Mhm.
he said, "I'm going to learn everything that the guys that don't work
Mhm.
and go on vacation,
Right.
Yeah.
what they know, I'm going to learn," and he's a hustler.
Yeah.
But the thing
Mhm.
about it is he's a hustler with a career.
Yeah.
What he does is a career, but it's a
Mhm.
hard career because you don't
Yeah.
always get called every day. You don't
Right.
Yeah.
get called all the time.
Yeah.
But he's building a business, he's building his own, but
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just amazing to hear you say it.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then, you confirmed in my mind, because all I kept saying is this little boy is crazy. This something's wrong with him.
I
He
love that. But again,
yeah.
it's the mindset. And so,
Yeah.
Mr. Wolford, folk, how do you think your mindset was developed that you became an entrepreneur and um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Where did
what
that
do you
come
think
from?
shaped your mindset for that?
Well, I think some of it came from just growing up in poverty and not wanting that to be my
Sure.
destiny.
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
good
You know,
motivator, right?
I tell people all the time. I think I got involved in the real estate business because we got evicted so much, and
Sure.
I remember
Mhm.
telling my mom
Hmm.
at one point that I'm going to own so many houses, I'm never going to have to worry about being homeless.
Very good.
Right.
and and
Yeah.
Right.
and and so that was part of my journey. I
Sure.
remember when I was I think I was probably my mom and dad had separated, and
Hmm.
my mother was a crossing guard because she always wanted to be home when we got out of school, and she wanted to be home with us in the summer when there was no school,
Yeah.
but she wasn't making enough money to cover all the expenses, so we spent some time on welfare.
Hmm.
So I
Mhm.
come home from school one day, and my mother says to me that our caseworker wanted to see me. And so I'm like, well, what does she want to see me about? I'm like 12 years old, right?
You
Hmm.
So
making her
I
money.
go down to the welfare office,
Mhm.
and it was probably one of the most disorganized places I had ever been to
Yes.
at that point in
Hmm.
my life.
Hmm.
There were a couple of police officers there to maintain control. There were people yelling and screaming, and they hadn't received their check. They hadn't received their food stamps.
Mhm.
They were having not so gracious things to say about their caseworkers. So then I get pulled into this office and started to have a conversation with this lady. And when you grow up in that environment, you have some people that you come in contact with that you feel are they're for you in some way, right?
Mhm.
They're trying to help uncover what it is you want to do with your life, how they can help you, what sort of resources do you need to kind of navigate that journey.
Mm-hmm.
But this didn't feel like that. This felt more like an interrogation. Like
Sure.
this was
Yeah.
something on her to-do list that she had to do, but she had no real care or concern about me.
Right.
And so when she asked me what it is I was going to do, and a few of those questions, I said to her, I have no idea at this stage of my life what I'm going to do. Uh, you know what I want to do when I grow up, whether I want to go to college or not. I don't know any of that. But one
Mm-hmm.
thing I know for sure is that you can remove my name from your list because I'm never coming back here.
Very good.
Mm,
And
mm.
with that, I got up and left.
Mm-hmm.
And she did exactly what I asked her to do. She removed my
Right.
name from the list. That meant my mother got a reduced check, and I
Mm.
continued to shine shoes, deliver
Mm-hmm.
newspapers, run errands,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and hustle up my own money to make my contribution to the family in terms of,
Mm.
you know, buying my own clothes and different stuff like that for school and school
Yeah.
supplies and different things like
Mm-hmm.
that. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so that coupled with being in an environment where there are people who will say things to you like, based on where you come from, you
Right.
know, you're not going to amount to anything. You know,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
you're born on the wrong side of the tracks. There's, you know,
Right.
life is not going to be, you know, really good for you. And, you know, those kinds of things really fueled the fire for me because
Mm-hmm.
my determination was you can say what you want, but you can watch my smoke because
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
I'm not gonna I'm not gonna end up where you may think I'm gonna end up.
Right. Right.
And so I was determined basically to make a liar out of the people who thought
Absolutely. I love that.
I wouldn't amount to anything. We actually had a teacher. I grew up in South Trenton and not too far from the Delaware River.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we had a teacher who called folks from my neighborhood the river rats,
The river rats.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And so my thinking was, if this is someone who is supposed to inspire and help you along your journey in life in terms of, you know, education and inspiration, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what they think of you, right?
Right.
Right.
then
Right.
you're then you're kind of on your own to a certain extent to
Absolutely.
decide how you want to think of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
I didn't think of myself as a river rat. I thought of
Yeah.
myself as someone who could do anything I wanted to do, anything I
Absolutely.
aspired to do, as long as I
Mm-hmm.
was willing to have the right work ethic to do that, then I
Yeah.
could
Mm-hmm.
do that. And so when I got my job as a teller at the bank, um, about 2 3 years after I got the job as a teller at the bank, I bought my first house. I was probably 23 years old.
Very good.
I would go to work till 5 or 6 o'clock at night,
Mm-hmm.
leave my job, go to one of my rental properties, work till midnight, go home, get ready for the next day. And I
Mm-hmm.
did that for years. So you fast forward that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thinking and that kind of work ethic to
Mm-hmm.
2001. That is what positioned me to leave my job and my
Mm-hmm.
boss coming into my office asking me, you know, was I sure about that, right?
Right.
Because, you know, we don't leave good
You
Yeah.
jobs.
don't walk
And
away.
It,
and
That's
his
right.
right. That's
right
right.
and his idea was, you know, you're the only black vice president here, right? You have stock options, bonuses, you know, 5 weeks paid vacation.
Mm-hmm.
We know better for
Have
you.
you right? Have you lost your mind? People don't
Yeah.
leave these jobs.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
I left. And
Right.
at the time I was chairman of the board of trustees for a charter school.
Mm.
So that when the CEO of the charter school realized I was leaving the bank, he said, "Would you be willing to come off the board and come and work as a staff member, you know, for the school?"
Mm.
And so we created the job description for that. I was able
Mm-hmm.
to get his job description as a CEO and overlaid his job duties with my job duties. And at the end of the day, I said to him, I'll take the job on one condition. He said, "What is that?" I said, "Well, I've overlaid your duties as CEO and my duties as the chief administrative officer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking on a good percentage of your job duties,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
there's no reason why the school should be paying us both to do the same job."
Oh
So
no.
I So I will take the position if you take a pay cut for what you're paying me to come on.
Yeah.
And he said, when you came on the board, you're the only one that spent a few hours interviewing me.
Uh-huh.
Right,
He
right.
said, so now I'm not surprised that this is your request.
Mm-hmm.
But he was really a great man of honor and integrity. He accepted that, took the pay cut, and I went on and worked as the chief administrative officer there for, I guess, about 15, 16 months till the end of 2023. And from 2023 or 2003 to 2008, I was home golfing, camping, swimming, traveling, and enjoying my family. And so,
Mhm.
so when I talk to people about some of the things as it relates to investing, whether it's starting your stock portfolio, real estate, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, whatever it might be, I'm not talking from a place of, I read some books and it sounds like a great idea. This is stuff that I have been able to do myself and been able to see the fruits of
The
my
growth.
labor.
Right.
And not everybody can stay home for 5 years and still pay their bills.
That's
And
right.
Right.
so so I put in the work and the results worked out well for myself and for my family.
And there's
Very.
always alternatives, but the thing about it is when you don't know the path, like you said,
Right.
when you look at what's going on from the time that our youth or those in the community have been so set in,
Oh, absolutely.
a lot of times the journey to be empowered
Right.
is a difficult journey for them.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
so when when you go to encourage them, the answer is usually, oh, but you had, but
Mm-hmm.
you did.
Mm-hmm.
But I used to get it with my education. I'm sure Felice gets it with her job.
Right.
Even my son, he gets it where, oh, well, you started that career when you were a kid and you
Mhm.
just enhanced it,
Right.
So how do we, as a community of people that are developing, we try to do it here on our podcast.
Right.
We allow people to come on. Hey, tell us how you got started,
Right.
because it's not so much that people don't see a banker or
Oh,
they
yeah.
don't see a real estate agent or they don't see a comedian like my
Mhm.
son is, or they don't
Mhm.
see a person like me, being
Right.
retired law enforcement and now you're an author.
Mhm.
They don't see people like Felice who does, entrepreneurial work, and she has clients and everything under her to build their portfolios.
Right.
They don't see the inner working.
Oh, yeah.
And it's hard, like you said, to give them that empowerment because
Oh,
that
yeah.
has to come from within.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
what do we say to them just to get them to say, hey, Phillip Woolfolk is doing a speaking engagement.
Mm-hmm.
You need to go hear him.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get them to just listen
Right.
to the empowerment and
Oh,
not
yeah.
go in with the shades on and behind the shades, their eyes are closed,
Right. Right. Yeah.
or they got the earbuds in and they're
Mm-hmm.
listening to something that's on the phone that's in their pocket or their, their bag that they got with them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
How do we
Oh, yeah.
get them? And I'm really not talking about those that have had a struggle already,
Mhm.
because that becomes part of their catalyst for empowerment.
Right.
I'm talking about the ones that are coming up now where we're diminishing some of the working in schools. We're
Oh,
diminishing
absolutely. Yeah.
some of the things in college. We're
Yeah.
losing out on some of the background that we had a hold on, and now it's being cut again.
Oh, yeah.
How do
Yeah.
we get them involved?
Well, I think one of the things that, we have to do, and I try and do it when I'm talking to folks, is, you see me now, right?
Right.
Mhm.
And, you may see someone who is polished in
Mhm.
custom suits and silk ties, right?
Yeah.
That's not where I started, right?
That's right.
Where,
That's
where, where I started was
Mhm.
as a bank teller making $7,000 a year with one suit,
Wow.
Right.
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 and I think my second or third paycheck, I bought 2 sports jackets and 2 more pairs of pants and another shirt, right?
Okay. Okay.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so then I could make it through the week without wearing the one suit for the whole week, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so at the same time, I had an interest in learning things that would allow me accelerate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember, I think about 4 or 5 of us from the bank one day. There was a guy in town who was doing a seminar on real estate investing, right? So there was a free seminar at a local hotel. 5 or 6 of us go down, and I decide I want to attend the full seminar, right? This was a kind of an info session to recruit people to come to the seminar. So this seminar was $500. Which when you're making $7,000 a year, $500
Wow.
is a decent chunk of change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So my fellow coworkers decided, oh, this is a scam, right? I'm not.
Yeah.
We're not.
Yeah.
We're not doing that, right?
Right.
So I pay my $500. I go that weekend. I spend 3 full days taking tons and tons of notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I tell people all the time, when you see me out at a seminar or session or anywhere, typically I have an ink pen and a notebook, right?
Exactly.
So I'm taking notes all the time because I'm
Mhm.
learning something wherever I go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I take a bunch of notes, and I decided early in life that when you attend an information session, there is something called information overload, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got so much information that the tendency is to go back home and just not do nothing, right? Because you have no idea where to start, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So what I tend to do is I take a lot of notes, and then I decide I may have 100 ideas on the page, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take 2 of those things, and that's what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
The other 98 can wait till another time. I'm going to
Sure.
do these 2 things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went to this seminar, and I learned about assuming a mortgage assumptions, right?
Mm-hmm.
I learned about assuming a VA mortgage and assuming an FHA mortgage, and that being a way for you to get into a property without a lot of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I start looking for those. I find this person that's selling their house. It's a veteran. He wants to sell his house, and he's willing to allow me to assume his mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
So I assumed his mortgage for something like, I don't know, $600, $700, right?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, filled out some paperwork. They didn't care about my credit score. I assumed an existing mortgage, paid the fee, took over his mortgage, and that probably saved me like $2,500.
Wow.
So in my mind, I got my $500 back already, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Because
good.
I've learned
Good.
something, I've implemented it, and now I own this house, right?
Mm-hmm.
So about 4 years go by. Over the course of that 4 years, I buy a couple more houses. Then one day the phone rings. It is the realtor that I bought that house from that veteran. He's now wants to buy another house. He cannot buy another house until his VA mortgage is paid off, and I still owe money on his VA mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? By then, the property was no longer worth $25,000.
Now it's worth more.
Property is now worth $80,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I refinance the house. I put money in my pocket. I pay off his mortgage. He goes on his merry way, uses his VA benefits again, and now I've learned that I can own a house, keep it for a few years, refinance it, take the equity out. Now I got cash to do something else with. And so
Mhm.
that laid the foundation for me to be able to use the capital that was building in terms of equity in the houses that I already owned to be able to buy other things, to be able to invest in other things. And one of the things that I discovered is when you're on that path, in addition to the good fortune that you create yourself, the universe is also on your side, right?
Mhm.
So I come home one day and I have a credit card in the mail, and it is a $10,000 line of credit, right?
Mm.
So I decide I could buy a couple more houses with this. But before that, I decided I could do something with 10,000. I could do more with 20. Let me contact the bank and find out if they will increase my line of credit, right? So
Yeah.
I discovered in that conversation that the reason I got the credit card was I had opened up a mutual fund account at a private bank that was basically for high net worth individuals.
I love it.
They assumed because
Yeah.
I had a few $1,000s in that bank, I was a high net worth individual.
That's right.
Mhm.
So I called them and they say, hold on a minute. After they got some income information from me, they come back on the phone. Excuse me, Mr. Woolfolk, there's been a mistake. Uh, you should not
You
have
should
that
not be on the
card.
list.
Right.
Based on your income, you're not qualified to have that card. We'd like you to send that card back to us.
No.
No.
I get off the phone. I go down the street to another bank. I get a cash advance for $10,000.
And then
Mhm.
send it back.
I
Huh?
take that cash and walk down the other end of the block and deposit it into my savings account. I cut the card up and I mailed it back to them.
Very good.
And they sent me a nice little letter saying, we didn't intend for you to use that card, but since you did, you're now on repayment only, right? The account is closed.
Yeah.
And at
Mhm.
that point, I'm like, oh, hey,
Okay.
I'm fine with it being closed.
Yeah.
I used that money to invest in other stuff. I started a stock portfolio. I made monthly payments until I paid the $10,000 back. I paid that back with rental income,
Mhm.
and that helped my credit score. And
Yeah.
before you know it, I was able to borrow more and more
More and
money
more
over
and
time.
more.
So
Right.
what I say
Well,
to people is that when they see us now,
hmm
they see the success, right?
yeah.
Right.
They've skipped
Right.
all that other stuff, right?
Right.
They've skipped the fact that
Mhm.
there are lots of days from 6:30 to midnight I was still working,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm getting home at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning,
Right.
taking a
Mhm.
shower, getting ready
Mhm.
for work the next day, and
Yeah.
repeating the process, right?
Right. Right.
Mhm.
And so there is something called the dues paying process, and you
Yeah.
can't skip it.
That's
I
Right.
right.
don't care who you
Right.
are, you're paying your
Mhm.
dues. And if you're not willing to do that,
Right.
you're not going to have the level of success that you
That you
could
want.
have
That's
That's
because
right.
that's right.
you're cheating the universe.
That's
That's
right.
right.
That's exactly right. And in our society today, there, it is touted that there is no work behind anything. It's just a
Right.
snap of your fingers, a
Instant.
twinkle
That's
of your
right.
nose, or
Yeah.
blinking. Like
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like the genie. Yeah.
right, right.
Right.
Mhm.
So I commend you on that, and that's what people need to know is that you are willing to do what it takes to get to the success that you have. And again, it's so lost on us that it's like I I think we don't have a hunger to achieve.
Right.
We just
Mhm.
want to have. We don't want to achieve. In the achieving where the great success is, because again, you did something, you laid a foundation for that success, and
Right.
so much we don't want this foundation to be laid at all. So we have this house of cards. It always comes crumbling down because again there's nothing to stand on.
There's nothing
And
to stand on.
by
Mm-mm.
you having the mindset once again to work it, so no matter what happens once you achieve a level, whether it takes a turn for the better or for the worse, you
Oh,
still have
absolutely.
the foundation of working, so you are able
Mhm.
to
Oh, absolutely.
reestablish. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I can fully attest to that. You have along this path, you have some ups and downs, and some
Mhm.
of the downs are significant, right?
Yeah.
But what you learn in in that along that
That's
journey,
where the
when you
lesson
develop the
is.
right work ethic and
Yeah.
you have the
Mm-hmm.
right level of tenacity and patience,
Mhm.
and you have, my tagline is be unstoppable. And that's,
Mm-hmm.
you at some point you make a decision that you're not going to be stopped, right?
That's right.
Exactly.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean that you're not going to be slowed down sometimes,
That's right.
right?
Mhm.
And that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you're not going to go backward sometimes
Right.
because things didn't
Mhm.
quite work out. But
Or
what
just
it does,
standing in place and turning around in a circle.
oh,
You don't even
absolutely.
you don't even know which way to go. You're
Oh,
just
absolutely.
standing, just going in a circle.
Oh, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. But what it does mean is that once you have developed that mindset and you have
Mhm.
that level of tenacity,
Mhm.
that you basically are it's like your receptors are very keen and in tune to what the opportunities are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so you're able to identify opportunities, and you're able to implement and execute on things in a way that allows you to turn things around even when things go south,
That's
right?
right.
Mm-hmm.
That's
But
right.
if you haven't really done anything and you've spent all your life on the couch, then
Exactly.
all you know is when things go bad, you just lay on the
Turn,
couch and put
turn
the
the
covers
channel.
over your head,
Just turn
right?
the channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just turn the channel.
and
Mm-hmm.
so to me, one of the fun things and one of the joys for me is to just have the attitude and have an attitude or just have gratitude for the life that you have, and
Yeah.
gratitude for the opportunities that you've had,
Mm-hmm.
and gratitude that you woke up this morning so you got another shot at it, regardless of
Mm-hmm.
That's
how
right.
bad things
Right.
might be or how bad
Yeah.
things might
Mhm.
seem.
Yeah.
You have an opportunity to turn things around, and that
Right.
becomes part of your story. And the more you're able to do that, the
Mhm.
more you can help other people understand that it's it's not about succeeding every day all the time.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's about pulling yourself up out of the mud,
And being able to
Mhm.
just walk.
rinsing the mud out of your eyes,
Yes.
and
Right.
saying,
Yes.
"Okay, I'm here to fight another day."
That's right.
And
That's
the
right.
and the thing about it is, I think in our society, the things that we're discussing are a part of what you speak on all the time. These are
Right,
these are the
Mm.
things that these categories are the things that you talk about.
right,
And when
Mhm.
you talk about the personal growth and the social issues, our youth, that group that's behind us, and I don't know how many people agree with me. Lord knows I don't. But the
Mhm.
thing about it is, I say it to my son all the time because he's in that group. He's
hmm
the group right before we had the drug epidemic,
okay,
right
Mm.
before we had the young grandparents, right
hmm
before we had the mothers that just walked away, right before
Mhm.
we had, the brothers that decided the street was better than going to work at all.
right,
So I constantly have the conversation about personal growth and social issues,
yeah,
Mhm.
and how social issues affect in a positive way because we get to see them. We now get to see all of the different things that were hidden before. We
right,
now get to see more of it. Our band and everything else is great.
Mhm.
oh
But
yeah,
tell me how this affects that, like you say, that encouragement. If I see that someone got on TikTok and was able to make this extra money,
Mhm.
but I don't see the struggle behind what they're doing,
hmm
Right.
or the person that advertises, for example, just us doing this podcast.
right,
No one knows what I have to go through
hmm
to get these elements and to get these people on the show.
oh
No
yeah,
one
Mhm.
knows
Yeah.
what it takes to do all of the background work.
oh absolutely,
No one has
Yeah.
an idea of that, but because it looks great on social media,
Oh yeah.
hmm
they assume that it's
oh yeah,
It's a
oh yeah,
snap of the
it's
finger.
easy. We can
Yeah.
just,
right,
There's
we
no
can just
work
do this.
behind it.
And then
Yeah.
when their person, right, but then when their personal growth is diminished, they're willing to lash out at you
hmm
because
Mm.
you spoke at this forum He must have been lying. There's no way in the world he could have got what he was supposed to get. Because I went on social media and ran an ad, and I didn't get anybody that wanted to buy a house.
Right, right,
You know
right.
what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Can you tell us how that sometimes teeters and totters
Oh yeah.
into the wrong portrayal?
Well, I tell you, it's some of it is very foundational, and I think as parents, when we're dealing with our own kids and dealing with young people in general, we have to be able to look down the road and sometimes see things that how they may see them up close, right?
Mhm.
I'll give you an example. When my daughters were younger, I remember, we would have like movie nights on Friday,
Mhm.
and typically that meant a trip to the ATM machine, right, to make a withdrawal, to then go to the restaurant to pick up food.
Mhm.
So I was very adamant about getting them to understand. You see me going to this machine.
Yeah.
I put in a card and I put in some numbers and I pull
Mhm.
out money, right?
Yeah.
But what you don't see is the work that I do every day.
Yeah.
That
There
has
are
to put
there
money
are
there.
deposits behind the scenes that are being made.
Right.
Yeah.
This,
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
this is not a money machine, right?
Right.
Mhm.
When you grow up, you're not going to get a card
Yeah.
and be
And
able to go to
automatically
this
get money.
machine and get money,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
You don't see me making deposits because that happens kind of in cyberspace through
Yeah.
my job, happens in cyberspace
Mhm.
through,
Yeah.
tenants
Yeah.
sending in their rent payment.
Mm-hmm.
I go to the post office, there are money orders there from people who
Mhm.
have paid their rent, and then I go to the bank and make a deposit, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now, fast forward to Friday, you just see me at the ATM machine making the withdrawal.
That's right. And
Mhm.
If you
that's
don't,
what
right?
happens, right? Yeah.
If you
That's
don't
what
put
happens.
anything in, you can't get
You
anything
can't
out,
get nothing
Well,
out.
but
right?
and again, so even our society has gone so far away from that, even
Right.
that the connections are lost, right?
Yeah.
So everything is now online. So I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
most young people don't know the inside of a bank. You
Right.
just go to your computer and you push some buttons and you tell it,
Oh
send
yeah.
me money, let me cash this money. So even, I've looked at, there's been several, branch closures
Oh yeah.
around town and everything because they're not needed anymore, right?
Right.
Mhm.
Because of this online thing. So there is such a huge disconnect as
Hmm.
to the effort and the hard work that it goes into to
Mhm.
make that withdrawal. And then I challenge one other thing that you just said, which, just it's so horrible. Kind of on the predatory lending side of this is that
Yeah.
you send your children off to college, and what
Right.
greets them there is every credit card company known to
Oh yeah.
man
Mhm.
offering
Oh yeah.
them this free money, right?
Oh
This
yeah.
this free money. In fact, I don't know. I was seeing a reel the other day, and it was just a little funny of um, this little cartoon person got an offer with a credit card, and they, took the credit card and maxed it out, and then
Right.
the credit card company is calling saying, where's our payment? And he's like, what payment? There's no. I'm not paying you anything. You gave me this money, kind of thing. And yes,
Oh
we
yeah.
make light of that. But again,
Right.
there is a huge grain of truth in that of they
Oh,
give you
absolutely.
this and then they don't set up the expectation of you really being responsible to return this money back to them.
Oh,
And that's the
absolutely.
gap. And that's
Yeah.
the gap. The thing
Yeah.
Yeah.
about it is it's such a gap where
Mhm.
we're no longer teaching history. So we're not
Mhm.
showing the growth.
You're right.
Whereas in your family, like you said, part of your family history was that you saw the problem with
Right.
being evicted.
Yeah.
You're right.
Even though people would say, oh my God, that's horrible.
You're
Yeah.
right.
But it was that history
Mhm.
that made you determine
You're right.
that's not going to be my story.
You're right.
Mhm.
It had nothing to do with how nice your mom was or how well
Right.
she was able to manage it or
Oh yeah.
how you were able to even function under that.
You're right.
The thing about it is we need our history. We
Oh,
need to
absolutely.
know that that's the basis that we're going on.
Oh yeah.
We also don't need to get rid of all of the things that created that history.
Mhm.
Right.
We need to have those. If you take away the ink pen and you leave me with just a computer,
Right.
Mhm.
what happens to me learning how to write?
Oh
What
yeah.
Mhm.
happens to
Absolutely.
me being able, now we don't allow our children to write in cursive.
Oh yeah.
Well, how's the signature going to be any different
Mhm.
if they
Right.
go to sign paperwork?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So we have to keep all of that personal growth
Right.
Mhm.
connected to the social
Mhm.
issues and the social matters.
Oh,
Mhm.
absolutely.
How do you get the audience the emphasis to understand that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I tell you, it can be challenging because you're sometimes getting people that are coming from a place where they didn't have that necessarily, right?
Sure.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
you may be dealing with people who are coming from a place where life was better, right?
Right,
Life
Mhm.
was
right.
smoother. They didn't necessarily have those challenges, and
Mhm.
they think that life is just easy and that's just how it is. Um, but at some point, people have to realize that you're growing up in your parents' house. If your parents were people of means and they're able to have a smoother path for you, God bless you, right? You had it easier, but you still have to try to make sure that there is a work ethic and some level of determination.
Mhm.
When
Mhm.
my kids were younger, I remember my youngest daughter wanted a iPod. Those were these little machines that played music, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Back then they were like $400. So
Mhm.
I asked her, what kind of business could you start? How can you make $400 to buy that device, right?
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So she came up with a document destruction company, right?
Very
So what she
good.
would so she would charge $25
Mhm.
to basically shred all of your documents, right?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
And I had a affiliation with an organization called Business Network International at one point, and a young lady had a virtual office, and she was actually taking down a law firm, and a bunch of documents had to be destroyed. So I told her about my daughter's document destruction business, and she hired her to destroy a bunch of documents.
Okay. Okay.
And I'm talking to her one day, and she said, Phil, one of the things I like about having your daughter do this. And I said, what? She said, she has no interest in what's in the folders,
Very good.
Right.
right?
Very good.
Right.
Mhm.
She has no interest in
She's there
she's
to
not.
do a
Yeah.
I
job.
said, you're absolutely right. I said, there could be money in some of those envelopes.
Yeah.
She
They're
would
gonna
not
be they're
know.
gonna be shredded. She's
Right.
picking them up. She's watching TV. She's dumping it in the shredder. Right? She's not opening anything up. She's
Yeah.
not trying to read anything. She don't care what correspondence is in there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Whatever's in that box is going to be shredded, right?
Right.
But what it taught my daughter was there's a way for you to get what you want without
Right.
relying on your parents to do it, right?
Right.
My
Yeah.
oldest daughter wanted a Mac computer. She started a water gardening service.
Mm.
So in the old neighborhood we lived in, when people would go on vacation, she would take care of their plants. She would
Mm.
Mm.
water their plants and take care of their flowers. So when they got back, everything wasn't burnt up.
Yeah.
Right.
That elevated into being on call for their alarm system companies when they were out of the country.
Okay.
Um, feeding their fish, going inside their house to feed the fish,
Mhm.
and take care of different stuff like that. Make a long story short, it took her about 5 years to save enough money to buy her first Mac computer. As a matter of fact,
Wow.
when she, when
That's
she bought her
perseverance.
she bought her next Mac computer, guess who got the old one?
I love it.
Ah.
Very good. That
That
is
was that was back in like 2011. It's kind of on its last leg now.
yeah.
I have another computer that I
But
use more
but the
frequently.
point is
But the
that
point
she
is,
learned,
she
right?
learned and she
Mhm.
bought her own
Yeah.
system, right?
Right.
Mhm.
So the two of them now basically the oldest one is 30, just turned 32, um, or 31. The youngest one will be 28 in July.
Mm-hmm.
They both know how to make money outside of working for a company,
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
right?
right,
They
right.
so these are things that our kids need to know,
Mm-hmm.
because you know there are forces out there that are changing things,
They don't want you to
and
know.
and and these are not things that people are learning in school, right?
Exactly.
Yes. They're
And
not.
And some of the
sometimes,
things and some of the
yeah,
things you don't learn until you go to college. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
right,
you don't get a chance to learn all of that. If you're in high school and you're learning statistics and financial management,
right.
you're learning it because you're exceptional in math. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
general course.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
have to
absolutely.
you have to
But
be
you're still,
exceptional in math.
even with all those skills, you're still not learning about the stock
Where to
market,
put it?
stocks,
Where
bonds,
Yeah.
mutual funds, how to
right,
invest, and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
You
right.
know, so these are things we as adults have to learn and be able to pass on to our kids. And
Absolutely.
if we're not willing to learn it ourselves, we need to
Mm-hmm.
be able to seek out resources. Like Dr. Boyce Watkins, for example. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
familiar with him. He's
Yeah.
a PhD in economics, and he
Mm-hmm.
teaches a wealth of information related to investing, stock
Yeah.
market, stock
Mhm,
options, all these different
mhm.
things.
Mm-hmm.
And I recently referred my daughter to take a look at learning that as a resource, having that as a tool
Yeah.
to be able to make money over and above whatever you might make on your job.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's right. Um, so how do you then, because even today it's not taught in school about
Right.
budgeting or even money management in any capacity.
Hmm.
It's just not a thing that is taught in
Right.
any capacity. So most children don't again get the concept that, the lights are get turned on, or that you come into a room and turn on the lights, there is a
Right.
bill attached to that. There's no
Oh yeah.
concept of that.
Mhm.
Right.
And then how much that is, in relationship to the family budget. Again, we're just like, let's when we're home, video games 24/7.
Hmm.
Right.
The
Oh yeah.
concept that electricity is attached to that, and it's costly. I know it is in Texas and
Hmm.
even Puerto Rico. It is costly,
Oh yeah.
um, and things like that. Though so you go to the grocery store, and you buy groceries. Just no concept that
Hmm.
they might because you do go to a cashier and you go through the checkout line, but still it's lost that connection of what it
Oh
takes
yeah.
to have
Oh yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately for me and my siblings, when my mother got paid, she would cash her check, and she put the money on the table in the kitchen,
Hmm.
and we have an envelope for rent,
Yeah.
an envelope for utilities,
Mhm.
Hmm.
the phone, the public service bill, or
Mhm.
Yeah.
electric and gas. That got counted out and placed in those envelopes.
Yeah.
And what was left was what was left,
Right.
right?
Right. Right. Hmm.
Mhm.
And so, and in a very us, we learn about budgeting.
Right.
When you get paid, there are responsibilities, and there are
Responsibilities.
things that you have to do to survive and to exist.
Hmm.
And so we learn that at a very early age, and it also cut down on what I used to see sometimes in the stores growing up, where kids would have temper tantrums over stuff they wanted their parents to buy.
Sure.
Right? It's
Yeah.
like we never had that issue. We knew
Yeah.
there was at the end of that there
Yeah.
was $80 left,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we never got an allowance, but we would sometimes have an opportunity to say, okay, well, we would like to have movie night, or it's
Hmm.
somebody's birthday.
Yeah.
Mom would bake a cake, and we
Hmm.
get together and have a good time over that.
Yeah.
But there were no tantrums in the store because
Right. Yeah.
you
Well,
know
again, because it
we
brings
knew
value.
what was there, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and you get the value of things, not even just being conscious of, but it's a value lesson, right?
Oh yeah,
Um, and again, when you face the reality of, okay, um, that toy or whatever is temporary, and as you said, with your $500 for the seminar,
right.
based on $7,000, look, you can't frivolously, or you could, because just spend that $500. It really has to count for where you're
Oh,
going. There's
absolutely.
value
That
in
was
money.
almost 10% of my annual pay.
Yeah,
And not only that,
yeah,
what needs to be taught to most of the kids is that
mhm,
not everything that you get paid out of what your work is, even if
Oh yeah,
mowing
yeah,
the lawn or
right,
walking the dog for a neighbor or
yeah,
whatever.
right.
Not everything in your paycheck goes to your pleasure.
Oh,
mhm,
absolutely.
And that's
yeah,
and that's
Oh yeah.
that's what I used to teach mine because like I said,
Hmm.
my son and daughter were in acting at
Hmm.
a very early age.
Oh, okay.
mhm,
So when they did commercials or they did, a skit or something for, the television, Nickelodeon and stuff like that,
mhm,
Hmm.
they get a payday. They
Right.
had a
mhm,
payday.
Hmm.
And I don't know who in their right mind thought that they were stopping these parents from getting the check because of course the kids don't have no ID.
Right.
mhm,
So you got the check got to go in somebody's bank, you
Right.
know.
Right.
mhm, yeah,
So to allow them to blow their money and
Hmm.
yeah,
allow them to do that, the way that I had to go and let them know
Right.
mhm,
was, hey, out of this check, you get one item
Right.
that can be your pleasure.
Right.
mhm,
The rest of this check goes to your education.
Right.
mhm,
So we're just going to put it in the bank.
Right.
mhm,
Even if it went later on to another gift of pleasure, they
Right.
automatically knew that some of that that's going to my education, or
Oh yeah.
that's going to
mhm,
this, or that's going to that. And then it
Yeah.
was also a way for me to teach them interest.
Right.
mhm,
Because at that time we didn't have credit cards, we didn't have all of that. You just had a savings
mhm,
account or you
Right.
right,
had a checking account. So
Right.
mhm,
I opened the savings account for them and told them,
Mhm.
this is your savings account, this is her
mhm,
savings account. When you get your check, and it was comical because my son would be, well, I wanted to get a aluminum bat for Little League, and
mhm,
you didn't let me get it. Now it was only
Right.
$21, but
Right.
mhm,
$21 at that time for a child to get everybody else had regular wooden bats, boy. What are you talking about? He wants a fancy bat glove. He wants a
Right.
fan,
mhm,
and he would whisper,
Mhm.
mhm.
I got paid for that commercial, right? You know, you know, so I had to hone it down.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't want your friends to think that you trying to outshine them.
Right.
Mm,
You just want something that's practical. You need new cleats, we get new cleats. You need a
Right.
bat, we get a bat.
mhm,
But
Right.
you don't need to have the bat with an insignia on it that they
Oh
know.
yeah.
You don't need all of that. That's rubbing
mhm,
You
it
know
off.
those
You don't
those
you
those
so there's
those
lessons.
those
There's
aluminum bats are not very good for kids in little league.
yeah,
no, but he
The
saw that
ball the
the
ball
older
comes off of that bat too fast.
yeah,
right, he saw
yeah,
the bigger people were using this, and this is what
mhm,
they got, and I want the glove. His hand
mhm.
was too little to even fit in a batting glove. What do you mean you want a batting glove? But
Yeah,
he was seeing what the older kids had
right.
and everything
Right.
else.
Mhm,
But
yeah,
it's a lesson.
Oh yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
those lessons are the things that we don't teach. Another lesson that we don't teach is for them to invest.
Right.
Mm,
Why? Tell me why that's not a part of our curriculum.
Well, I'm not sure if it's I can't answer that emphatically, but
mhm,
the educational system that we have now in terms of public education was developed during a time of the Industrial Revolution. So
mhm.
the purpose of education was to get people who could follow
Right.
direction
Oh,
and
right.
to and to, and to,
Right,
and to, and to come
right.
out and be part of the Industrial Revolution.
I'm glad you
Right.
said it and I didn't.
It was not necessarily to create
Yes,
the next layer of Rockefellers, because
Yeah.
if
exactly.
Right.
if
Exactly.
everybody's Rockefeller, then who's going to be at the plant?
And not only that, now we're seeing, especially again with social media and with the videos that they show now with investments and everything else, and you're wondering, well, wait a minute, I could have bought stock at that number. I could have had a house. I could have turned
Oh
houses
yeah,
over. I could
right.
have did this. But it was not,
Mhm.
like you said,
Hmm.
in our school system. It was
Hmm.
not in our neighborhoods. It was not in our communities. And no one was coming home saying, hey, this is what, on my job today, this is what we learned. So let me
Right.
show you.
Oh,
We
absolutely.
didn't,
Yeah.
that was not a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. These are lessons that we have to, bring into our communities ourselves. You know, 2025, 2024, collectively as a group, African Americans put about $1.8 trillion into the marketplace. There's money we
Mhm.
spent as consumers. So to your point, when we
Yeah.
started this conversation,
Mhm.
we're not broke, right?
Yeah, we're not.
We're spending a lot of money on things we don't actually need, right?
That's right.
And,
That's right.
Mhm.
right, instead of spending $200 for a pair of Nike sneakers, we should be buying stock,
That's
Mhm.
right. That's right.
right?
Mhm.
We're
Instead of
busy
buying
making other people
Gucci
rich.
handbags and and all
Yes.
that stuff, we
Hmm.
should
Mhm.
be taking some of that money and investing it. And
All of
so
it. So
we
you
have
have
to.
something to put into that purse
Oh, absolutely. I
instead of
Mhm.
think I don't
buying
know if
the
you're
purse.
familiar with Dr. Frazier. Dr.
Yes.
Frazier says
Mhm.
that
Yes.
he'd rather have $5,000 in a plastic bag than
In
a
a
five
Gucci
hundred
bag,
dollar
Right.
right?
hand
In a Gucci.
in
Handbag with nothing in it, right?
it, right?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
something like that. But the
Yeah,
point is we should be investing and growing our resources as
mhm.
opposed to spending exorbitant amounts of money, really making other communities wealthy
That's right.
on stuff.
Exactly.
And
Absolutely.
I remember the first time I went on a cruise, I sat with a couple at dinner
Mhm.
and I recognized that they had on matching Rolex watches valued at about $100,000. I
Mm.
made no comment about the watches, but I was
Mhm.
immediately curious about what it is they did. So I asked them,
Mhm.
what do you guys do?"
Uh-huh.
Right?
Uh-huh.
They own 25 Pizza Huts.
Mm.
They work 7 days a week for about 30 years.
Wow.
Mhm.
They sold 20 of the Pizza Huts outright.
Hmm.
They kept 5 of them and sold the remaining 5 on installment sales contract to their son and daughter-in-law.
Mm.
That was my first cruise that year. That was their 10th cruise that year.
Whoa.
Mm.
Because they spent so many years working 7 days a week,
Sure.
Yeah.
they were doing a cruise a month,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But the point is, they put in the time,
They put in the
right?
time.
They
That's right.
invested the
Yeah.
time and the effort.
Yeah.
Now, to look at them, they had on basically like polo shirts and khaki pants and dock
Mhm.
sides.
Hmm.
Mhm.
If you didn't see the watches, you would figure, hey, this just an older couple on
Yeah.
On a
vacation, right?
cruise. On a
Right.
cruise.
On vacation on a cruise. I think I was maybe 26 or 27 at the time.
Hmm.
They were like 55, 56 years old, but they
Mhm.
had been working 7 days a week since their 30s,
Mhm.
Wow.
since their early 30s, right?
Hmm.
And so we have to have that mindset
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
Hmm.
I find I run into a lot of people who are actually wealthy, right? Wealthy people are not trying to look wealthy.
No.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Not at all.
Most of them are trying to look broke, right?
Yes. Yes.
Exactly.
They
Yes. Yes.
they
Yes.
don't want you bothering them,
They
right?
Right.
they
Right.
they have no desire for
Hmm.
anyone to think the wealth they had. I met the philanthropist that started the Boys and Girls Club,
Yeah.
Hmm.
and he came to during Black History Month. He came to Newark
Hmm.
to go around to the Boys and Girls Club, and I worked at the
Hmm.
Boys and Girls Club. I was director there,
Hmm.
and he looked odd because
Right.
very well, white boy in Newark ain't the norm, you know. He looked to be in his early 40s, maybe late 30s, but he
He
had
had on
on
his khakis and
yeah,
his plaid shirt.
jeans,
Mm,
the golf polo shirt with the
Right.
golfer emblem on it. He
yeah.
had on deck sneakers
Yep.
Hmm.
and a baseball cap.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And when he walked in, the officer that was on duty, he came to me and he said, Miss B, there's a white guy here.
Mhm.
And I was like, I hope they ain't coming with another doggone program that ain't gonna work. And because they would always come with something that wouldn't work for the inner city,
Right.
So he came in and he said, he introduced himself, but he never said he was who he was.
Right.
Mhm.
He just said his name.
Right.
So, I invited him in the office. I had him sitting there and he said, I'm waiting for the director that was coming from downtown. He said,
Okay.
she told me to meet here because you have the biggest club. And I
Mhm.
said, yeah. He said, well, I'll wait for her to get a tour.
Mhm.
So I went out, I'm talking to the officer, and I'm like, this white boy probably gonna come and give us a donation,
Mhm.
probably gonna see if we need the money, that kind of thing. When she came, she said, "Oh, I'm so happy to meet you," and da 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 and da 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 da. And then she said, "You've got to know his name." And I'm like, "No, lady, I have no idea who this guy is."
Mhm.
And when she said his name, I had to almost hold my lips together
Right.
Mhm.
because he was one of the main persons in New Jersey.
Yeah.
He was
You-
the philanthropist that was constantly, you get
Mhm.
a check with his name on it just
Yeah.
about once a month.
Right.
So I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Because they don't walk around. He ain't walking around in Stacey Adams shoes.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
You were on the episode of Undercover Boss, huh?
Right. Right.
Yes. Yes. And the thing is, you're professional and everything because I never know who's coming in.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So
You
I'm
shouldn't be
professional
in it.
enough.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that, but
Right.
I'm more worried about what the kids are going to say to him.
Mhm.
Right.
Because it's going to be, what that white boy doing here? Don't say that. Trying to teach them etiquette, trying to
Right.
teach them how to be. So that's what I'm saying about the lessons.
Mhm.
That these lessons we have to start giving our youth
Right.
these lessons, not only their parents but them as well.
Oh
But
yeah.
one of the questions that is strung out: who is your work meant to protect and to guardrail or give them some kind of guidance?
I work with a bunch of folks, and I guess predominantly it is with business people or aspiring business people, right? So I do, one of the workshops I have coming up is there'll be some people there who are currently own businesses, and there'll be some people there who have jobs and are thinking about starting businesses. So that's a population of folks, and then there are some professionals who are aspiring entrepreneurs. They have decent jobs, they make decent money, but they realize that they're at risk in terms of their compensation, their livelihood could be lost at any time. And those are folks that are typically, some of them are aspiring entrepreneurs, so they want to start businesses. And then I work with some real estate investors facilitating funding for their real estate projects.
Okay. Now you had a couple of quotes.
Before we do
Mhm.
those quotes, can I ask a
Okay.
quick question?
Sure.
Because I find that the mindset, even when you're an entrepreneur and you have a great idea,
Mhm.
everything tends to be hung on the product or service that you're doing, right?
Mhm.
And so then that gets it kind of a little warped in the mindset of you've got to make this sell. You've got to, because your livelihood depends on it.
Right.
And we should, I feel, my humble opinion is that we should more or less teach wealth building, because as you have these products and projects, again, the economy is going to do what it does. It's up one
Right.
moment, it's
Mhm.
down a moment. And when we hang everything on the company to be the provider of all of your things. I think that's
Mhm.
where a lot of our, especially entrepreneurs, miss the boat.
Mhm.
Um, to not like take money and invest or find other avenues of income,
Right.
especially as an entrepreneur, because, and at some point or up until a point, you're not going to get a line of credit or a business loan or things like that.
Mhm.
But even if you do, having the mindset of really securing your financial um, portfolio is
Mhm.
missing, I feel, in that. Do you
Oh yeah.
feel?
Oh yeah, that happens a lot. And I think, one of the things I talk about with people is, you really can't live on every dime.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And when things are going really well and you're making money, that is the time to save, that is the time to invest, that is also the time to borrow, because it's typically easier to get funding when you need it the least. You can't wait until you have a project that you need working capital for in order to meet payroll, when you have a contract that's starting in 30 days. You want to build those relationships, and you want to build your ability to access capital during the times when things are going great. I liken it to what some of the older folks used to say to us growing up. When Noah built the ark, it wasn't raining, right?
Mm.
And so
Mm.
you can't wait until the rain starts to start preparing for the rain.
Mhm.
um you know
Yes, because you know
you
that rain. You were told the
right.
rain is going to come. Are you
Oh
prepared?
yeah, yeah. So
The
when
rain
Mhm.
is
things are
going to
going
come.
things are going great, you put
Hmm.
money away, you you
Hmm.
you invest, you create a situation where that is growing, and then when the time comes, you're able to access that. The other thing that I think we lose sight of in terms of financial tools and resources, one of
Hmm.
the things we don't do as much as we should or could is in the area of insurance.
Hmm.
And so one of the things that has helped me over the years, during lean times, is to have cash value life insurance policies,
Mhm.
Hmm.
and to access and borrow money from yourself,
Yeah,
when the bank is not willing to lend you money.
that's right.
And so
Mhm.
you do those things when times are good. And so when things get tough and you have cash value life insurance, you can access your money in 24 to 48 hours.
Right.
Whereas
Mhm.
whereas the bank may look at what your current situation is and say, well, your income is going down,
Hmm.
your assets are diminishing in value based on the market
Right.
has dropped, whatever the case may be. And so you're at this time not a good risk.
Right.
But if you're in a position to borrow money from yourself, you've created
And yourself.
your own mini bank,
That's
then
right.
you're not going to deny your own loan
That's
application,
right. That's exactly
right?
right.
Mhm.
You
And
know,
by doing so, you put the power squarely in your hands and not in some. You don't give someone else the faith over your life. You know.
right,
Mhm.
right.
Um, yeah,
And not only
and
that, there's no longer the long-term things that they had years ago, because you had to be on a certain level to get in those type jobs.
Right.
You know, to get a pension, to
Mhm.
get a ample amount in Social Security.
Right.
You
mm-hmm,
know, those days are now gone.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You're not going to get those type jobs anymore. You have to do those 401ks and everything else. You
Mhm.
have to put the money in the 401k.
yeah,
You
Right.
know, some jobs are no longer even matching your
Mhm.
money. They
oh,
Right.
started out where they would match you, but
Right.
mm-hmm,
now there's some jobs that won't even match
Oh yeah.
your
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
input in your own 401k,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
um
Yeah. So you got to put yourself in
you
the
got to put
driver's seat.
yourself in the driver's seat, because you work at 20, 23, 24 years old, and you're looking at, okay, I'm just going to have to work for myself. Well, how long do you think you're going to work?
Mhm.
You're not going to be able to work forever.
Right.
mm-hmm,
So how long do you think you're going to work? And my favorite thing is there's going to be a need for an umbrella of some
Right.
sort.
yeah,
Yeah.
And how do you not get an umbrella if you don't pay for your own health insurance, pay for your
Mhm.
own whatever it is that you're doing as an
mm-hmm,
entrepreneur? You
Right.
still have to think about the fact that I need health insurance.
Oh
I
yeah.
need I need to be able to put away money for retirement. I need to
Right.
be because I might not be able to do that. Those people that are making products, you might not be able to knit that quilt or
Mhm.
make the item that you're selling,
Right.
and your kids may not want to make one. You
Oh yeah.
know, they on
Yeah.
social media trying to sing. They ain't got time to be making no quilts. You know, they don't have time to do that. So you got to make sure, that these are the things that we face. And
Oh
that's why
yeah.
I always go back to the kids and say, if you're not telling your kids, that this is what we have to do and this is how we make money. I wasn't upset about changing jobs.
Right.
My being upset came in when I found out after I left, there were people that weren't getting the same type contract. There
Hmm.
were people that weren't getting the same advantages. You
Yeah.
know, now the job is more diminished. They're making the money,
Right.
but like I tell people all the time, I've even said it to Felice, I'm careful about me saying I'm making any kind of money because
Hmm.
you got the government looking at you going, wait a minute. How much you make this year? No, I didn't make a thing. Believe me, I didn't make any money. Because you got to be ready to deal with what the realities are. And
Right.
they took away your bottom for you to stand on, but they
Yeah.
also brought down your roof so that you don't
Hmm.
stand tall.
Right.
They don't want you to be able to stand up. But your quote here, throughout history, we triumph in the face of enormous obstacles and challenges. It is our legacy to never quit, to be unstoppable. How do we explain
Absolutely.
it to them and they don't know the history?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, I went to public school and I graduated from high school not knowing the history either, because
Mm,
the history we were taught was not the
was not
true
the truth.
history, right?
No.
So we were you know, fed a bunch of information, and you regurgitated that information to pass the test and get an A on the test, but you got an A on the test, fabricated facts,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to take an interest in history ourselves and be able to learn things that are, of benefit. And one of the things we have to know and understand is that we've made a significant contribution in this country, regardless of what anybody might want to tell you, and that is not what you typically read, and that's not what's promoted. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of action taking place now to dismantle some of that, uh,
Sure.
Right.
including removing somebody like General Colin Powell from the
Right. Right.
from the from the ranks of being someone that's interned at the National Cemetery at Arlington.
Right.
So there's just a lot of that kind of crap that's going on. So the history is being muffled, and it
Dismantled. That's right.
Yeah.
dismantled,
Right.
and
And,
and it's
and
and
I,
it's up to us to learn that and be able to preach about it.
right. But I think as the part of history that really we are missing is that the 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 one voice, the one call. So now it's like, yes, we still have in our DNA uh, to overcome and to be unstoppable. But
Right.
we don't do that collectively like in the past, right?
You're right.
Yeah, and so that really hurts us as a people, no matter what, when you look at other cultures, it's
Oh,
all about
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
their
Mm-hmm.
culture. And so
Yeah.
we're so fragmented and disjointed in the coming together, right? So we still, individually face these obstacles and we are
Oh, for sure.
unstoppable. But
Oh, yeah.
again, but we will never make the strides and be the culture. We don't have um a loyalty to our culture.
Right.
That's what I
Yeah.
think. It's
Well,
so
the level of unity is certainly not what it once was.
sure.
The color of the Triumph in the Trenches series is the green book, right? And
Mhm.
it
Mm-hmm.
is It is based on the history of the Green Book from the days when our folks would travel around the country and there were
Yeah.
places they couldn't stop. So the
Right.
Green Book offered them, where they could eat, where they could
Mhm.
rest, where they could stay in a hotel, where they could get gas, and
Yeah.
without a lot of issues. And so
Mhm.
when you think about those times before desegregation, there was a lot more unity
Yeah.
around economics. We had our own hotels and restaurants because we couldn't eat or stay anywhere else.
Right.
And then once that became open and available for us to stay anywhere, we started staying everywhere but the places that were owned by us.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
so, so we have to get back to the whole economic foundation of
Mhm.
spending money with each other.
Right.
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 And we just want to remind our guests as we begin to close out that Triumph in the Trenches is an anthology. And a lot of people always say, oh, well, you get so much more when you get an anthology. But get the anthology that's helping you. It's
Mm.
not the same as a fiction book where you read it
You're
for
right.
entertainment.
You're right.
Anthologies are usually read for facts.
Mhm.
They're read because they're personal journeys, they're personal stories.
Mhm.
Very seldom do you get an anthology that has all made up stories.
You're right.
Mhm.
Most anthologies are total facts. So, like
Mm.
you said, Triumph in the Trenches is telling you how people overcame in the trenches.
Mhm.
They got
Absolutely.
down dirty and
Mhm.
had to get in the mud and
Right.
had to wipe the mud off their face and
Mhm.
had to stand up when they wanted to sit down.
Mhm.
They did some things.
You're right.
They did some
Yep.
things. Like
Yeah.
you said, you work all day and then you go home and you work all night.
You're
They
right.
did
Mhm.
some things. There's some
Yeah.
things that had to be done in order to get the triumph.
You're right.
Right. And
You can't blow
you
your
know.
horns and be happy
Mhm.
because I read the book. No, be happy because you worked the book.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
used the book. So if you want to get in touch with Mr. Woolfolk, you can get in touch with him at his email. Like I said earlier, make sure be ready for the answer because he's coming back with an answer. So don't call him unless you really, really, really want to know particular things. Don't because
Mhm.
we don't want to waste his time. You know,
Mhm.
you don't want to tell him how you lost 2 pennies and you just want to make
Mhm.
5 back. You know, he wants to show you how to really,
Mhm.
invest your money and
Mhm.
get what you need to get started in your business,
Yeah.
be it real estate or be it investments or be whatever it is. You can also go to his website, www.phillipwoolfolk.com, and you can get information there.
Mhm.
I suggest you go to the website first. If you didn't take real good notes tonight, go to the website. Go to the
Yeah.
website, find out what's going on because and I'm being honest, the man is here. He hears me as well. Everything is not for everyone.
Mm.
So
True
when you
that.
go and you look and you say, you know what, I really don't want to get into real estate, or I really don't want to get into this. I don't want to know much about banking. Well, maybe it's not for you to talk to him,
Mm.
but that email should address that.
Mm.
Suppose I wanted to start a business doing something else.
You're right.
Mhm. Yeah.
Suppose I wanted to do this. Don't
Mhm.
just look at it and say, well, he doing real estate and investment. No, 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 no. He said he was a banker. Did you hear
Mhm.
that part? He could
Mhm.
tell you, hey,
Mhm.
this is the type of loan you might need.
Mhm.
This is where you may need to go for this type of business. You might
Mhm.
be listen, I might know a grant person that might be able to
Mhm.
help you with this.
Right.
Don't take the information and be so naive that you look at the cover and don't open up the book to see what the book is.
Absolutely.
We've opened up his book tonight. We've opened
Mhm.
up who he is. We've
Mhm.
given you more than enough information for you to be able to elevate to the next level in your business.
Well, I just
Absolutely.
encourage everyone to be open minded. Because as you said, Nana, they may not be interested in real estate. They may not be interested in all the things, but guess what? that if you're interested enough in what you want to do and achieve, those things are merely tools to get you there. So,
Right.
again, I encourage anyone that's listening might say, no, that ain't for me. Well, but it is really the vehicle to in which to get to where you want to be. So, we there's a saying in marketing or sales that no one wants to buy life insurance. No one wants that. But they want to take care of their family. So guess what?
Mhm.
You buy the
Absolutely.
life insurance to take care of your family. So I just want people to have,
Understand it.
our
Understand
mindset
it.
right.
No one wants to look, a gift horse in the mouth and you never said hi to the horse.
I always never understood that. Why are you looking horse in his mouth?
Not only that, how do you know he's gifted? You know what I mean? But the thing about it is you don't want to, my grandmother used to say that all the time. You don't look a
Yeah,
gift horse in the mouth if
sure.
you never know where it can take you.
Yeah.
A gift horse? Okay. But now that I'm older,
Yeah.
I understand. Someone's
Yeah,
bringing
yeah.
you something and you don't use it as a vehicle or a tool.
Sure.
And
Hmm.
this is a vehicle and a tool, and we want to thank you
Hmm.
so much
Yeah.
because you've given
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's
a
been a
wealth of
pleasure chatting
knowledge.
with you both.
Yeah, you have a wealth of
Likewise.
knowledge.
Likewise.
Now, Felice has one last question for you.
I do. And first, again, it's been a pleasure. And that
Thank you.
you just keep getting gooder and gooder. So, so we talked a little bit about this in the course of our conversation about people meeting you where you are, and I think
Right.
Les Brown says this really well about people, know me from the point in which they meet me, but
Mhm.
none of the things that it took to get me to this point.
Right.
And so we love interviewing and talking and having conversations with wonderful people as yourself that give their gifts out to the world. But we would be remiss if we didn't ask the question because people see the wonderfulness in where you are right now. But what do you do as you are giving your gifts to the world? What do you do to fill Mr. Phillip Woolfolk's cup? Because there is self work that has to be done
Oh yeah.
in order to maintain what you're doing. So please
Oh,
tell us, if you
oh,
will.
absolutely. Well, I've been a martial artist for a number of years, so
Really?
I do a lot of working out.
Mhm.
Sometimes I will come in and go in the basement, and my family will hear uh, the uh, the heavy bag reverberating throughout the building.
Mm. Mhm.
and
Mhm.
and sometimes I will make that visit before I come in and say hello.
Oh, very good.
Right,
Yeah.
So
right.
it depends on what's going on. But
Mhm.
I work out on a regular basis. That keeps me grounded, keeps me sane.
Yeah.
Um, I also, even though I've been a successful real estate investor for a number of years, I still do, have some folks that do work for us, but at the same time, there's some things I do myself. I find it sometimes room or spackling or taping a sheetrock or
Mhm.
something like that
Mhm.
is a good way for me to unwind and kind of escape. And so if I have a small project, like right now, I have a place I had some water damage in the ceiling in the laundry room. So it's a
Mhm.
small job. So I'll do the spackling and taping in that room
Uh-huh.
myself. And then
Mhm.
some of the larger projects, we have other people that do some of that stuff. So for me, kind of, painting a room or working out on the heavy bag or, doing I don't know if you guys remember the old Gazelle, like the cross country
Mhm.
ski thing, so I do that. I do the treadmill, and
Uh-huh.
I walk with my daughters and different things to unwind and keep myself, mentally grounded. And
Yeah.
I never get too full of myself. I remember where I came from. I also remember, you were talking earlier about utilities. I remember when we didn't have lights in the house, and
Mhm.
I went next door to the neighbor's house to do my homework. So
Yeah.
Miss Prince was one of our guardian angels, and she was
Mhm.
kind of like the grandmother we never knew.
Mhm.
And so I did a lot of my homework at her kitchen table when we didn't have
Mhm.
lights.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so So those are the things that give me gratitude, keep me grounded, and
Yeah.
and have me be able to relate to people who might themselves be in a place where they haven't made it financially yet.
Yeah.
Well, again,
Absolutely.
we want to thank you. We want to
Yeah.
thank our audience, and I want to remind them, if you missed anything or you want to find out, wait a minute, I should have wrote that down and I didn't get it. You can
Mhm.
always see the replays on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, Interviews and Conversations. I pin Visions, Interviews and Conversations, as well as on my website, www.nanetteMbuchanan.com. You can always go there. So you will be able to replay it when you're ready, replay
Hey.
it when you need it. If you're in class and you're like, well, I'm not quite ready yet, it's always there. And he's always there. Make sure you go to his website and make sure you send an email. But for now, we're going to say good night, and we hope to see you next week. Thank you for
Good
joining in.
night. Thank you for
Thank you, guys.
joining us.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
night.
Mr.
Good night.
Woolfolk. It was a pleasure.
Yes,
Thank you
it
so
was.
much.
Yes, it was.